This is off.
Good afternoon, folks. Welcome, welcome. For those who don't know me, I am Pastor Diana, and I've had the awesome and wonderful privilege of serving with Jayden and Anna for the last, how many years? 7? 5? 6? That's a long time. I've been so appreciative of their presence here with us, for all the things they've taught me and the ways that they encourage me. And today is their last official Sunday with our community. This also coincides with our summer sharing series, where we've been inviting people from our community to share their story of God's welcome. So there's personal stories and sharing and how they've experienced God's welcome in their lives. And throughout this summer sharing series, we've also invited people, the community, to respond with after the sharing. So as you listen today, I'm going to invite you to listen, to check in with yourself. What is resonating with you? What in their story and what they're sharing that you can relate to, that seems to resonate with your own life. And also listen for an appreciation as well. Parts of their story that encourages you and perhaps leads you to loving God more, loving others more. After the sharing, there will be an opportunity for everyone to offer a resonance. Given the number of people here, I'm not sure if we'll have time for everyone. So I'm going to invite you to keep your resonance and affirmation to like one sentence. Try really hard to sum up what resonates with you and an affirmation, and so that we can get through everyone, should you wish to offer that to Jayden and Anna. So without further ado, let's welcome them to the front.
Does someone have tissues? Like a tissue box? I'm just anticipating perhaps crying.
Preemptively for tears.
We don't know though. We also have a visual timer. The clock is ticking for us, so that we'll stay on track.
We'll try and stay on track.
But I see some unfamiliar faces, and so for context, thanks, Susan. Jayden and I are married. We've been married for 5 years, and we got married.
5 years Friday, actually.
Yeah. So, and 7 days after. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, give it up for us. Yeah.
And we thought it was a really good idea to move to Vancouver 7 days after our wedding. And then we've been at this church ever since. And now we're leaving. So this is there a reverb on this one still? We're going to be going out to Calgary, but we'll get to that later. And we have 3 parts on on our story on God's welcome. I'm going to start right away. Because we're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the 3 parts are, do you want to say what the three parts are? Like, we wanted to tell our backstory, how we met as a couple, which overlaps with our story, how we met Jesus. So that's kind of the backstory. It's a little bit of a lore drop and a meet cute story and a Jesus meeting story. So you can look forward to that. And then the second part like Anna said, is our time together with you all. These last 5 years where we've been here in Vancouver and in a part of this community and blessed by it. So we'll share a little bit about that, and then we'll talk a little bit about where we're going. So those are 3 things.
So the photo that you see there is a photo that I took on a film camera in New York City weeks after encountering the living God very deeply and my faith taking root, and halfway through my first year in university. There's a lot in that backstory that I would be happy to share over coffee, but suffice to say that I was skeptical of Christianity at a certain point, particularly within that first semester of my first year after being quite intentional seeking, and struggled with disintegration of like following Jesus, but then actual expression in church community based on my 12th grade year trying to go to church, and then coming to terms of colonialism being in bed with Christian missionary movement and residential schools and really struggling with that. But the Lord met me in that space and introduced me to people in InterVarsity Christian Fellowship in a Bible study, where that night, the first Bible study I went to that January, halfway through my first year, we studied Luke 9, 1-6. And there was a diverse group of people where people were acknowledging and not sweeping under the rug the messy parts of Christian history, which felt important to me, and something that was a big stumbling block in my faith of how could we trust Christianity if this much bad happened in the world in the name of God. So they were addressing this and addressing kind of repenting of the harms of cross-cultural mission movements, and then they were it was a very genuine group of people and this radical faith. And by the end of that month, I had a very profound encounter with God. And 2 weeks later, I was on a bus to New York City with all of my high school friends. They were all a bunch of dudes in the jazz program. Some of them know Evan Ing because they went to the same U of T jazz program. And I had no place to stay. And I was 18 and totally fine with it. And it was similar to Rob's story when he didn't know where he was going to live in Florida, California. That was, I just knew. I was like, well, if Jesus sent out the 12 and later the 72, and he said, take nothing with you and be welcomed by strangers, something really happened to me. It was like, I have faith that the Lord will provide. And I was on that 12-hour bus ride, and I did not know where I was going to sleep that night. But I knew I was going to be fine, and there was like backup plans if something was wrong. And literally the woman I was sitting next to was this like Orthodox Jewish woman who's like, oh, don't stay with these 7 stinky boys. Come and stay with me in my apartment in Washington Heights. And I just had this peace about me that I could trust her. And so I stayed with her. And then that whole week I just had like profound interactions with strangers about God, and I'd just like share this image, and then they'd start weeping in front of me, and like I needed to hear that, and it was just super, like a very intense period of my life. And why does this matter? Because if that didn't happen, Jayden and I might have not gotten married. We were exchanging emails at the time, and that was when I told him that I became a follower of Jesus and had this crazy experience in New York City, and I shared some of my photos, this being one of them where I had a very intense conversation with my very atheist friend who now works at Tesla. And we were like, read between the, anyway, just kidding. And then we were just talking about like, what does it mean for God to love us? And then we look up and there's this cross, and I took a photo of it in like the financial district in New York City. Anyway, you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's interesting how our faith journeys and our relationship together kind of wove together, because she let me know that she became a follower of Jesus through that email. Remember the story about going to New York? And right around that time, as I've shared before, I went through a period of depression and really struggling for meaning and purpose in life. And I got curious about religion. And so she had just shared that, got curious about Jesus, and you were one of the only people that I knew, like close to, or even remotely close to me, that had a living faith in Jesus. And so I started asking Anna questions about who is God? What is Jesus about? And she said to me, we used to date in high school. We shouldn't talk. But you should talk to my pastor. A very wise choice. I ended up chatting with him, and he discipled me, and at the end of our time, like talking weekly, for a number of months, I was like, I want to become a follower of Jesus. And that's what brought me to F3C, was finding community here in Vancouver. He was in Ontario where Anna was. Yeah, I feel like we jumped ahead, though, and we need to get to some of the cringy photos first.
Yes. Oh, that's the wrong.
Oh, yeah, other way.
Okay. So this is us in 7th grade. When we first knew of each other, we went to the same junior high school.
This is you.
No, that's me. Do you see where you are?
Oh, that is me. Wow.
Right there.
There's a big arrow and everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to block it out. That's all right.
So our junior high school, Branton Tigers. Someone's from Calgary here. Andrea.
Oh,
Happy
yeah,
birthday,
Andrea.
by the way. Hooray. But Northwest Calgary, Branton. And then neither of us grew up in Christian homes. So to fly over. But I did have Orthodox influence. And so here, these are Pascha breads. And so Easter was a big deal for my family. And this is me making Easter cakes for my family. Fast forward to 12th grade. Jayden and I thought we were cool, and then we also liked each other. So we dated for a total of 1 month.
Yeah, which Anna still hasn't let me down
Jayden
for that.
dumped me.
I broke up with Anna.
I know.
Yeah,
But
right before finals.
Right before finals.
Right before finals. It's still a point of contention.
This photo was taken post-breakup. Look how jovial we are. And Jayden thought it was a good idea to get to know me by signing up for all of the clubs that I ran, which was tough.
Yeah, so on this photo right there is a photo of our film club organizing group. So Anna was really interested in short films and really good at making films. And I liked Anna, so I liked short films for a year. And never picked that up ever again. So
yeah,
paid off in the long run, though.
But this is also a relationship without Jesus, and we have this really interesting data point of the breakdown. And we were young, 17 isn't necessarily the best time to think about a lot. Well, anyway,
best
whatever.
Best time to think?
Yeah. And I think that the problems that we experienced, we revisited later, but we're able to address them within a completely different framework because of Jesus. So this next photo, some of you might remember me one fateful day in March 2019 when I came to visit church. And I showed up at lunch, and they're like, "Who's this?" And it's Jayden's friend. We started dating that day. And so this is the sunset when Jayden defined the relationship with me. And that was great. So round 2, clearly it worked out. 5 years married. And we summered. This is us, the first year we were dating. That's in university. Reconnected in Paris. And then we kept on dating through COVID. And Jayden proposed to me here. And that's a blurry photo of our engagement. Look how young we are.
There's supposed to be a ring there that you can't
really
see.
You can see it here now. And then we got married. Jumping photos is still a pattern for us.
Yeah. Some things from high school never leave you.
So from that, I alluded to 7 days later, it was a great idea to move our lives to Vancouver. And this is where we were paired up, sent 2 by 2. For me, it was a new city and a new context and a new church. And here we are. I think this is like the first Sunday that we are back, and there's Susan. Hey. And then this is a few years ago at a Thanksgiving potluck. Here, in our time being married at this church, this was actually, I think, the first AGM that I got to be a part of, and it was our first kind of big gathering post-COVID. And so we were sharing consolations, which is these little bread pieces, and desolations. And I think that this has been like our first season of marriage and ministry together. And we experienced our own set of consolations and desolations profound welcome and beauty and community, and then a hard time of transition and pain, being in a new church context together and married for the first time.
Yeah, that was a big shift because I had been in the church community, and I think I've shared my story a few times of how this community has been an amazing space of being welcomed and being discipled, of meeting friends, and really my first experience of Christian community, and one that's just like forever shaped me. And yeah, when Anna came in, I wonder if you want to start talking about what it was like for you to join the community.
It was actually quite difficult for me to feel integrated. It probably took me about 2 to 3 years to feel a part of it, and a large part is almost like a cultural difference. So I didn't grow up in an Asian Canadian context, and I didn't know how I could be present in this community. There was a lot of more passive communication, whereas I came from a context and family that was a lot more direct. And I had a hard time testing the waters on how myself I could be. I remember at first feeling a bit actually uncomfortable to, I'm a pretty emotional, or I wear my heart on my sleeve and I don't hide my emotions, but I remember being emotional in front of this group of people and feeling uncomfortable that wasn't maybe okay. And it took me some time to regain that courage to be okay with that. And that was something that I struggled a lot with Jayden, like, can I belong here? I didn't go to Lord's Grace Church and I don't have small children, and really trying to find a way through that was hard for me, coming from a different cultural context.
Yeah, and speaking on like the welcome of God, there was a lot of learning for me in the first few years because this was my home and my people, and had come into this church context, which felt very familiar to me and very welcoming to me. And so I struggled those first few years to really understand what you were going through. I think some of the cultural differences I didn't feel because I'm, half Chinese, and I understood some of the things a bit more naturally, the ways that we are. And I don't think I realized how hard it was for you to adjust to Vancouver in COVID without friends, and I was going to school and you're just working remotely, and in church community where we were struggling to kind of get plugged in. And so that was something, looking back now on the welcome of God, I realized that not everyone's experience of welcome is the same. And for me in a marriage to be able to slow down and to think about somebody else whose kind of path into a community can be totally different and feel quite hard, where for me it was like really easy, and I felt profoundly welcome in a way that I'd never felt before. Yeah, it was like instant family for me when I had joined.
Yeah, and there's a lot that we could it's hard to kind of name a reason or patterns behind that. I also recognize that we were emerging from a season of COVID. But I do want to say that it did turn around. There was a moment where I was like, Jayden, I want to have our first children here because I want all the ladies at FBC to be with me in my sleep deprivation. Which was a signal of a profound shift, because I remember just feeling pretty isolated, and then pretty brokenhearted, because that wasn't what my experience of church was like before in Ontario. The one thing that I did want to land on, though, is more of the beauty of what it has been. So kind of this turnaround and ability to form deep relationships with people here, whether it is through the prayer group or small groups that we were encountering. And then also appreciated just the trust that Diana and Ted and the leadership team had for us to experiment with new things. This is Derek, Julia, and I, and the Running for God group, which was short-lived, but it happened. Other things too, homegrown. I think almost all of the photos we use now for our slides are photos that our community have taken, and that was a people trusted me in experimenting in that, and I felt like I got to grow and then re-enter into like fully embrace who I am as a leader as well, and own that I don't have to own who I am as well and be welcomed into that eventually, and then being able to form relationships and have really deep conversations with people like Aaron and walk alongside one another in that.
Yeah, totally. And I think this is a space where we both felt welcome and empowered in the kind of way that God welcomes us, in that he trusts us to go ahead and lead. And I felt like, I've served as an apprentice pastor and was youth pastor, and Anna's basically done an internship informally for the amount of things that she's been doing in terms of worship coordinating and liturgy and art and that kind of thing. And I just wanted to say thank you. I think this photo kind of encapsulates a moment where that came to fruition of like, we were empowered to lead. Me out there baptizing, and Anna being a mentor as well. We felt trusted, and that y'all were behind us in terms of like, yeah, go out and lead and go out and care for our teens in Jesus' name. So I'm just super grateful for that. Some other spaces you might not be so empowered to go out and be yourself and make mistakes and learn that way. So I felt like we really grew as leaders, and that's because of the trust and like gentleness and forgiveness of our church. Yeah.
So that is to say, I just wanted to be transparent and authentic, and because the first experience that I had was a bit more challenging than I was anticipating. It has been very beautiful to since become involved and integrated, and the Lord met me in those spaces, and you met me and introduced yourselves, and we did life together. And we did life together and have really felt embraced. And then we have been able to be very cherished to then start extending that welcome. Like, there are so many new people that weren't here 5 years ago that we get to meet, like Finn and Rory and Rachel and Jess, and just this breadth and richness of community, and people that I have yet to meet and won't be able to meet further because we're leaving. But where are we leaving to? We are off to Calgary, and this is us taking possession of our home, which was wild. That's a different story. Some of you might be aware of that, but we are moving to Calgary. The Lord provided a home for us, and there's some reasons behind why Calgary.
I actually wanted to back up if I can. We hadn't prepared a whole lot of it, so this is a lot of off the cuff. But I wanted to back up about our relationship with you all, the church, and just one thing I wanted to share as we go, which might be, I think, a little bit of a harder thing to share, but I think it's important for me to name because it was something that I realized and learned. Reflecting on Anna's like having a harder time connecting with the community, I think while we're going through that first few years, it's like struggling to feel like this is also Anna's home and not just my home, made me realize that, I've experienced this community as a very welcoming space for certain reasons. Like, I was really keen in the faith, like culturally it really fit, and I developed key relationships with certain people like really quickly. But for Anna, that didn't happen as quickly or in the same way. And it made me realize that, like for our community, we do welcome really well in certain sorts of ways, but then there's other people who can intersect with our community that we really struggle to welcome, just because we might not have eyes out to see a different type of experience. And I wanted to share that because we probably aren't the only ones in our community that experience that sort of thing, where there can be like inner groups and just ways that we don't see others that are on kind of don't naturally fit in with whatever life stage or kind of cultural background that we're coming into. And I think when I first noticed that, it was a bit shocking for me, being like, this is a welcoming community, isn't it? Then why is this happening for Anna? And like, how could this happen for Anna? But I think that's a way in which, as we think about the welcome of God, I think our church can grow into a lot. What is it like for people like Anna from a different cultural background, a different church background, to feel welcomed here? I think that's something I'd like to, as we go, just challenge the community. And I think we are wonderful and welcoming in a lot of ways, but I think we can grow into, what about people that are different? What about people that are not in our church circle as well? And I think about the passage that we read too as well, just like, it's uncomfortable. Jesus' welcome is uncomfortable. It makes us relate to people that we wouldn't otherwise relate to. Go out into these towns around us with people that we just, I don't know, if we were living our everyday lives, we wouldn't engage with, and actually receive their hospitality, live with them. I think that's something in which our church is trying to live into with our vision, extend God's love to all those around us. And something we can really, really grow into. And I just wanted to be real about, I think sometimes we see ourselves as a very welcoming community overall, and I think that's true, but there's different possibilities for experience, and wanted to give an example of there were some things, while we do feel welcomed, and this is everyone is our people, and we're welcomed here, there's ways that it was really hard for us, and that could be a story that's going on in and amongst our community that might not always be recognized. So anyway, did you want to add anything to that, Anna?
No.
Yeah. Great.
I guess, no, here I am adding it's not supposed to be a condemnation. It's supposed to give space and voice to an experience that we might not feel as comfortable to name and voice. And so leaning into the tension and the nakedness of having to do that, not having a cloak to offer that, and then a call and an invitation to what this could look like going forward. But for transitioning, for us going forward, Calgary, often they're saying, people will say, Vancouverites will say, why Calgary? Don't you know it's cold there? Jayden, why are we moving to Calgary?
I feel like bridging on some of the things that we learned and around the welcome of God here is we really experienced God's gentleness, I think, in this community. And I really learned what it's like to host people, to have people over at my house, and to start viewing my space and my life as a place where, as a place of welcome and as a home for others, and not just providing my own way in the world. And so I think that's one of the key things that we're really hoping to carry forward, that we learned from F3C as we have our own home. It's what if we view this house as not just our house, but it's this is a community house. Other people belong here, and we want to make it a hub for our neighborhood, our church, and just to have friendship, and not to say that this is our own space. And I think many of you opening up your homes for Bible studies and just dinners and community events was life-changing for me, because I didn't grow up with any of that happening in my own house. And so I think that's one thing we really want to carry forward, is living for others and seeing now that we own a home as a space, as a home for others, not just our own.
And for our lives to be seen. I think of when Jesus says, a city on a hill cannot be hidden. And our house is kind of on this mini hill, and the front yard is quite sloped. And there is a fence around that. And people initially were like, oh my gosh, a front yard fence? You're going to get rid of that? Who's going to use the front yard? And we really want our future children to use that front yard, to see the joy of children being present. And then when we were praying over this house before, as we were discerning whether or not to put an offer on it, I felt quite profoundly in my spirit that We are to have this house and this home for it to be a light or a space where the Lord can be seen. And it sounds kind of weird, but even the fact, like, we have these giant windows in front of the house, and they have no window coverings, which I always look into people's homes if they don't cover their blinds. And I actually felt that in prayer, like, this house doesn't have window coverings, and that is for a purpose. Like, people are to see your lives and for your lives to be seen so that Jesus can be seen in that. And a really big component, too, on why we're coming back is for our family. And very few people in our family know Jesus. And so particularly our grandparents. So we have 5 living grandparents in Calgary between the 2 of us. And they're experiencing profound loneliness and fear of death, and they don't know Jesus. Well, actually, Jerry came to faith last summer. That's a separate story. But yeah, it's just like we want to be present and not just like the supercharged Christmas visit, but to be there regularly and let our lives be a witness to them.
Yeah, I think it's been on our hearts. It's been kind of a heartache of mine over the past maybe 5 years where we've been here, that we have really rich faith conversations with our family when we're back, especially with my parents. Like, they're actually really curious about who Jesus is. But I feel like I'm limited in my ability to like enfold them in Christian community and like live that life together. And so I feel like that's one of the, maybe if not the most profound call for us to return to Calgary, is to continue that work, and also to be present to the final years of our grandparents' lives. There's something holy about that, where we want to be able to care for them in their moments of weakness, and just like they've cared for us as we were little kids. So to like pay that back and to give thanks and to worship God in that way is something that's really, really on our hearts.
Yeah. It's been, and on that point, sorry, I'm being irresponsible and I didn't turn off my ringer. That this like U shape of caring for the elderly, it's been quite painful to say goodbye to our grandparents who really cared for us. So it's like a really weird feeling to like see my grandpa, for instance. I helped him for surgery a few weeks ago and how helpless he was. So you can pray for us in that, of like to not be discouraged, because often people think that like Jesus can't meet, or not, people think that people don't want to meet Jesus or will change their mind about Jesus when they're already like in their 80s or elderly. But Ted's example last week of his own grandfather in dementia being able to consistently say that he knows Jesus and trusts Jesus and Jesus is his Lord is what we're really holding on for.
Yeah, totally. And God has been faithful in that work too. I think I should share a little bit of my grandpa's story. My grandpa Jerry in the bottom left-hand corner. So he had a serious stroke, and he's hemiplegic from the left side and has some brain damage as well. And we've been talking about Jesus for the last, 2 or 3 years pretty consistently. Just kind of, he's been asking me about who he is and whatnot. And I continue to say like the same things often over and over again, just because he's different mental capacity, and he asked me the same questions about 3 times before it starts to stick. But I remember we had one conversation about Jesus, and I was just talking about the love of God and who he is, and then at the end of it, it was just kind of a different one. It was like all the same things, same questions, same responses, and then he goes, yeah, you know what? I think this could make sense to me. Before I thought that it didn't make sense, but I think this could be possible. And then I went back to Vancouver after that conversation, and then came back like a week later because we had something, and I talked to him, and he pulled me in, he's like, Jayden, I have something to say to you. And I was like, okay, Gramps, what could this be? He's also a jokester, so you never know what that's going to lead to. But he pulled me in, and he's like, I really have to say something to you. And I'm like, what is it, Gramps? And he's like, I've become a Christian. And I was like, wait, what? You what? And I'm like, tell me more about like how that happened. And he's like, well, it's your cousin's wedding, and she's been sick this week. And after that we had that talk, I thought I'd just pray to Jesus for her that she might become well. And Jesus answered my prayer, and she's better. And so now I know that Jesus is my friend and that I have a buddy up there. And that's has been his consistent phrase about who God is Jesus is my friend, and he listens to my prayers. So I just think like, yeah, even in the face of the final years, and like he's not fully able to understand everything, but God is still faithful to him. And I think we're hoping to continue that care with all of our grandparents. So, yeah.
So these are some ways. What's next for us? This is us at the Calgary Zoo, which is just a short train ride away well, not short, but it's a train ride away for us. And this is the church building that we are going to, where Jayden is employed, significantly bigger than any church we've ever been to.
Yeah, so I got hired as a youth and young adults pastor at this church, which is called Foothills Alliance in Calgary. So if you're Calgarian, you know about it, you can come on by. Yeah.
So as we start, you could pray for us and pray with us for rootedness in community and belonging, for God's light to be present in our family, and for God's blessing and provision in us. We want to start a family, and so for that to go well as it can go. And I'm like, oh shoot, I kind of want to, like, I don't know, the ladies come fly out to me or something. I don't know. WhatsApp me your wisdom when I'm sleep deprived. So we're going to hopefully be able to do that in Calgary, and that didn't happen in Vancouver, but here we are.
Yeah. I think that'll hold that moment in our hearts too, of like, we're sad to be moving away. And one of the things that stands out to me that you said even now was, I'm torn. I don't want to have kids in Calgary because then I'm going to be away from our F3C ladies and community. And I don't want to be away from Calgary because we're away from family. So it's just feeling like that was who you have been to us the last 5 years, is that family that we felt like we could raise our children with. And so we're just grateful that we can call you family and friends, even as we move to a different city. So we're really grateful. And our talk is fully baked. So there you go. Easy bake oven is done. Yeah, that's all we had to say. So yeah.